The aliens believed humans measured time like flickering sparks, brief, frantic, meaningless, until one man taught them what waiting truly meant. When the starship Aurelian glided into orbit around Earth, its crystalline hull shimmered like frozen starlight. To the alien race known as the Syrians, time was a fluid concept, stretching, folding, spiraling. They lived for millennia and measured patience in ages, not minutes. Human time, to them, was chaotic, tiny lives rushing forward, burning hot, extinguishing quickly. They assumed nothing small could understand endurance, until they met Elias Carter. He was an old man by the time the Aurelian landed in the Nevada desert, his hair silvered, his spine curved like a question mark bent by gravity and years. But his eyes, pale blue and sharp as winter ice, still carried the fire of a promise he had made 6 decades earlier. The Syrians descended from their ship, luminous and tall, their movements smooth like drifting mist. They came not to conquer, but to observe, to understand the species that had sent countless signals into space like messages in a cosmic bottle. One Syrian Kellanor stepped forward as the humans greeted them. His voice resonated not through sound, but directly into the mind, soft and echoing. "You are Elias Carter," Kellanor said without speaking. "We know your name from the transmissions. You have been waiting." Elias nodded. His hands trembled as he leaned on a wooden cane. "I've been waiting for my daughter," he said quietly. "She left Earth 60 years ago. She promised she'd send a signal when she reached the new colony." To the Syrians, 60 years was nothing. A breath, a ripple. But they sensed something unusual in the old man's voice. A tension, a gravity they could not translate. Kellanor asked, "Why wait? Humans live so briefly. Would it not be rational to relinquish?" Elias smiled, the lines around his mouth deepening. "Because she's my little girl. And a promise." He tapped his chest. "A promise lives here, not in the clock." The aliens observed the old man as he returned to his tiny cabin on the outskirts of the desert. Inside, dust-covered radios, antenna arrays, and old star charts filled every corner of the room. A single photograph, his daughter, Amelia, at age 12, grinning with her first homemade telescope, sat framed above his bed. Every night, at exactly 2:07 a.m., he climbed the rickety stairs to his rooftop antenna, adjusted the dials with shaking fingers, and whispered into the transmitter, "Amelia, if you can hear me, I'm still here." Kellanor and the other Syrians watched unseen, perplexed. Why repeat a ritual that had yielded no result for 6 decades? Why cling to hope that logic rejected? Humans, they concluded, must misunderstand time entirely. But something in the air changed on the Syrians' 3rd night of observation. As the old man whispered into the transmitter, a faint tremor ran through the long silent receiver. A single pulse. A whisper of data. A heartbeat across the void. Elias froze. The aliens leaned forward, and then the signal came. The pulse that crackled through Elias Carter's receiver was so faint it barely registered, a single blip swallowed by a sea of static. But to a man who had listened to nothing for 60 years, it was thunder. His breath caught. His trembling hand hovered over the tuning dial, afraid that moving even a millimeter would scare the sound away, like a wild bird perched on his windowsill. "Amelia," he whispered, voice cracking. Kellanor and the other Syrians, who observed from a cloaked perimeter, felt the old man's sudden rush of emotion like a shockwave. To them, emotion was a quiet current, gentle, controlled. Elias's surge of hope burned like a solar flare. The receiver crackled again. Not random noise. A structured tone, repeating, growing stronger. Elias stumbled into his chair, fumbling for the recording switch. His heart hammered against his ribs, painful and heavy. At his age, excitement came with danger, but he didn't care. Then, through the static, a broken voice emerged. A woman's voice, fragile, glitching, stretched across the light years. "Dad, I colony, hit by storm, navigation, lost." Elias gasped so sharply it turned into a cough. Tears welled instantly, unbidden, carving warm paths down his weathered cheeks. "It's her," he choked out. "My God, it's really her." The Syrians were stunned. They had decoded hundreds of human transmissions, but this one vibrated differently. Not technologically, amazingly, the signal was soaked in desperation, love, fear, and longing. It confused their senses. Kellanor stepped closer, his crystalline form shimmering. This human suffers and rejoices simultaneously. How can short-lived beings endure such contradictions? Another alien, the scholar Cyrilla, tilted her luminescent head. He has waited 60 planetary revolutions for this moment. Their entire species' time frame is wrong. They measure existence by connection, not chronology. Elias adjusted the frequency. "Amelia, sweetheart, I'm here. I never stopped listening. Never stopped. The voice cut in again, clearer this time. Signal window, only minutes. Ship damaged. Searching for route. Dad, don't give. Static swallowed the rest. Elias pressed the headset to his ears, shaking violently. I'm right here, baby. Take your time, just talk to me. I've waited this long. I can wait longer. The Syrians watched, mesmerized. Time, Kalanori thought. He speaks of it as if it were a companion, not a measurement. Suddenly, the signal strengthened again, but this time it wasn't Amelia's voice. It was data. Compressed coordinates, corrupted star maps, distress arc patterns, an avalanche of information burst through the speaker in rapid digital pulses. Elias stared at the cascade of symbols printing automatically onto his old thermal paper output. What is this? Cyrilla inhaled sharply. A lost vessel's breadcrumb trail. The data stream ended abruptly, replaced by silence. Not static, not noise. Pure, total silence. Elias removed the headset slowly, tears still clinging to his lashes. She's alive, he whispered. And she needs help. Kalanori felt a strange tightening inside his chest, like gravity folding inward. This, he realized, is human time, not seconds, not years. Devotion stretched infinitely. What the Syrians saw next would challenge everything they believed about the tiny, short-lived species on this blue planet. Elias Carter didn't waste a single moment. His hands, though stiff with age, worked with the precision of decades of practice, translating Amelia's garbled coordinates into actionable data. The tiny console in his dusty cabin suddenly felt like a bridge to another world. The Syrians hovered nearby, invisible, their luminous forms flickering as if uncertain whether to intervene. They had never witnessed a creature so subtle mortal take the weight of the cosmos on his shoulders and move forward with unwavering determination. Elias mapped the coordinates onto an old star chart, tracing the path of Amelia's lost colony ship. The journey was impossible for him alone. Even with Earth's fastest craft, the trip would take decades. But Elias had a plan. He turned to the Syrians. I don't know how you work your ships, he said, pointing at the Arlen hovering above. But I need to reach her. She's out there somewhere, and time isn't on her side. Kalanori's crystalline frame rippled. You expect us to trust you with the understanding of the stars. Yet you are human, limited, frail. Why should we intervene? Elias looked him in the eye, determination blazing. Because I have waited 60 years to hear her voice. I have endured every sunrise, every storm, every lonely night, for her. If you don't help me, someone else will, or she might be lost forever. You call this limited, but patience, hope, and love. These are the powers that drive humans beyond their lifespan. The Syrians were silent. In all their millennia of observation, they had catalogued ambition, curiosity, and logic, but never devotion that could bend time itself. Kalanori finally spoke. You will pilot our vessel, and we will observe, but know this. Your species' concept of time will be tested beyond comprehension. Elias didn't hesitate. With trembling hands he climbed aboard the Aerolan. The interior shimmered with alien symbols, instruments, and displays that rearranged themselves according to thought. He felt the hum of energy beneath the floor, vibrating through his bones like a heartbeat. Kalanori guided him to the control array. You must trust the instincts of your heart, he said. Coordinates alone will not suffice. You must feel the signal as it moves through the void. Only then can you find her. Elias's mind raced. Heart, instincts, hope. These were human tools, crude yet powerful. He closed his eyes, reaching for the faint resonance of Amelia's last message, the pulse that had carried across 60 years. It felt like a thin thread of light, almost imperceptible, stretching across the darkness. As the Auralon accelerated through the vacuum, stars blurred into streaks of silver. Days, weeks, and months collapsed into a single heartbeat. Elias felt the Syrians' perception of time stretching and folding around him. To them, the journey was instantaneous. To him, it was a symphony of moments, each memory of Amelia intertwining with the present. Somewhere in the infinite black, a signal flickered, weak, fragmented, but unmistakably human. Elias whispered her name again. Amelia. I'm coming. The Syrians, who had never understood the meaning of patience, watched in awe. This humanoid, fragile, fleeting, was bending the rules of the cosmos with sheer will. And for the first time Kalanori felt a sensation he could not define, admiration, not for power or longevity or intellect, but for the relentless, enduring force of a parent's love. The Aerolan adjusted its course, automatically drawn toward the faint resonance of Amelia's vessel. Elias tightened his grip on the console, heart pounding. Every mile, every pulse, every memory of 60 years condensed into a single purpose. He would not fail her. The Auralan's engines hummed with a sound Elias almost recognized as a heartbeat. Stars stretched and warped around him, alien constellations bending in ways his human eyes could barely follow. But he didn't notice the distortion. He was focused entirely on the faint, wavering signal of Amelia's vessel. The Syrians observed silently. Even their advanced minds struggled to comprehend the intensity with which Elias pursued a goal that, by their standards, should have been insignificant. 60 Earth years, Kellanori thought, spent tracking a single human signal across countless light years, and he still moves with purpose. Elias tapped the console, translating coordinates, recalibrating the ship's trajectory, and compensating for gravitational anomalies in real time. Each adjustment brought the signal into sharper focus, a lighthouse in the cosmic dark. His mind raced with memories of Amelia, the tiny fingers clutching his hand, her laughter echoing through a childhood home, the day she left for the colony ship with a promise that had defined his entire life. At last, after what felt like an eternity, the Auralan's sensors picked up a derelict vessel. Its hull was battered, panels missing, lights flickering weakly. The craft drifted like a wounded bird through a field of asteroids, its engines long since dead. Elias's heart clenched. "That's her, that's Amelia's ship," he whispered. Kellanori's form shimmered with curiosity and caution, it appears. "Abandoned. Human life signs are faint. You are unsure, yet you persist." Elias's jaw tightened. "I won't leave without her. She survived this long. She's out there." They maneuvered the Auralan closer, and the old man's trembling hands guided a delicate boarding pod to the damaged vessel. Each movement required precision. The ship could collapse under the wrong pressure. Elias's heart raced, but his decades of waiting had taught him patience. Every second mattered. Inside the derelict ship, the corridors were dark and silent. Dust floated in the artificial gravity like frozen smoke. Elias called out, voice shaking but resolute. "Amelia, Daddy's here. Can you hear me?" For a moment, there was only silence, then a faint echo, a whisper of a voice, weak but unmistakable. "Dad, you came." Elias followed the voice, his cane now replaced by determination alone. At last, in the medical bay, he found her. Amelia was older than he remembered, her hair streaked with silver despite her youthfulness, but her eyes the same pale blue as his locked onto him instantly. Tears streamed down both their faces as Elias dropped to his knees beside her. He reached for her hands, trembling with relief, disbelief, and the weight of 60 years spent waiting. "I never stopped. Never. Not for a second," he whispered. Amelia's grip was weak, but her smile was radiant. "I never doubted. Not for a moment," she replied, her voice a frail but steady beacon of hope. The Syrians watched, silent and immobile. They had seen countless signals traverse the void, countless calculations made by beings of incredible intellect, but never had they witnessed devotion so profound that it could bend the limits of time itself. Kellanori tilted his head. "Human time, it is not measured in seconds, minutes, or years. It is measured in waiting, in enduring, in love, and it surpasses comprehension." Elias held his daughter close, listening to her heartbeat as though it were a rhythm guiding the cosmos itself. For the first time in decades, he felt complete. The signal that had defined his life had been answered, and the universe seemed, for a brief moment, to pause and acknowledge the power of human endurance. As Elias and Amelia embraced, the Syrians remained silent observers. Their crystalline bodies shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid prisms, reflecting the incomprehensible emotions they were witnessing. Kellanori, the most senior among them, took a cautious step forward. "We have observed the species of Earth for millennia," he said, his voice resonating in minds rather than ears. "Yet never have we understood such endurance. You have demonstrated that time, for humans, is not a linear measurement but an extension of intention and devotion." Elias, still holding his daughter's frail hands, looked up. His chest heaved from emotion. "Time isn't just about clocks or rotations of planets. It's about promises, love, waiting, holding on even when everything says to give up." Amelia smiled weakly, squeezing his hands. "And now we're together. Dad, that's all that matters." Kellanori studied the data streams the Auralan had recorded during their pursuit of Amelia's vessel. The signals themselves told a story of man's devotion, creating a thread of continuity across decades, guiding the lost ship to safety. The Syrians, beings whose lifespans were measured in thousands of cycles, began to understand a concept previously foreign: human patience in the face of mortality. "Cyrilla," the scholar finally spoke, "we have catalogued millions of species. We have seen civilizations rise and fall, entire worlds destroyed, but none have bent the rules of the cosmos through the force of commitment alone. This is remarkable. Elias nodded slowly. You see it now, don't you? It's not speed, strength, or intelligence that defines a species. It's what we endure for those we love. That's what makes time meaningful. Kalanori's light flickered as he considered the statement. Tessarian's life was vast, endless, and measured in epochs, yet this human aged frail and fleeting had commanded attention across light years, simply because he refused to let go. Perhaps, Kalanor admitted, our perception of time has been incomplete. Perhaps the true measure is devotion. Elias smiled, the first genuine smile in decades. Exactly. You don't need to live 1,000 years to accomplish great things. Sometimes, waiting is the greatest act of all. For the first time, the Syrians saw the significance of human lifespans in a new light. The previous arrogance that a species so brief could be inconsequential shattered in the face of Elias's devotion. They had witnessed something impossible, a life stretched by purpose, not duration. Elias and Amelia spent hours explaining their methods, showing how the faintest signals, guided by love, could traverse vast distances. The aliens, normally incapable of emotion, felt the pulse of urgency, hope, and patience. It was foreign, uncomfortable, yet fascinating. By the time they prepared to return to Earth, the Aurelian's crew had learned more than any textbook could convey. They had experienced human time not as a mechanical ticking of seconds, but as a living, breathing testament to resilience and love. Kalanori finally addressed Elias. You have taught us that time is more than a dimension. It is a force, driven by connection and commitment. We thank you. Elias nodded, his eyes glistening. Then take this lesson with you. Let it guide you in understanding us better, and maybe teach others that patience can cross even the vastest distances. As the Aurelian prepared to depart, Amelia rested her head against her father's shoulder, feeling the weight of decades lift with each passing heartbeat. Together they had shown the universe that some promises are eternal. The Aurelian lifted off, carrying Elias, Amelia, and the Syrians across the dark void of space. Stars stretched into streaks of light, planets blurred into ribbons of color, and yet Elias felt grounded, anchored by the presence of his daughter. Every pulse of the ship seemed in rhythm with his own heartbeat, decades of hope and longing finally converging into a single moment of fulfillment. Kalanor observed silently from the control interface. We have traversed millions of miles in what our perception considers an instant. Yet this human experiences time as if each second is a lifetime. How can this be? Cyrilla responded, her crystalline body shimmering in thought. It is not the quantity of time, but the intensity of intent. He has measured decades with the devotion of a single heartbeat. This is human time. Elias leaned back in the ship's observation deck, watching the stars glide past. Amelia rested her hand in his, fragile but warm. It's strange, she said softly. All those years apart, yet it feels like we just left yesterday. Time, it's funny like that. Yes, Elias replied, funny, and cruel, and beautiful. You can lose track of it, but you never lose it when it matters. The Syrians recorded everything, not just the coordinates and signals, but the emotions, the patience, the devotion, the persistence that had guided a father across 60 years to save his daughter. They understood now that time was not a measure of life alone. It was the depth of experience, the weight of promise, the endurance of hope. For Kalanori, this journey changed everything. A species that had seemed fleeting to him now revealed itself as infinitely profound. Perhaps the universe had underestimated humans all along, he thought. Perhaps the shortest lives can leave the deepest echoes. Elias reflected on the decades of waiting the nights alone under the desert sky, whispering into his transmitter, hearing only the echo of his own voice. Those years had been lonely, but they had shaped him, tempered his resolve, and honed a patience that spanned light years. He had become something he never imagined, a bridge between worlds, a testament to human endurance. Amelia looked up at him, eyes wide with wonder and tears glistening. Dad, we made it. We're together. That's all that matters. Elias smiled, a slow, radiant smile. Yes, my dear, that's all that ever mattered. And now, the universe knows what we already did, that waiting, love, and hope can bend even the impossible. The Aurelian carried them home, leaving a trail of pulsating energy across the void, a beacon for anyone else who might one day doubt the power of human determination. The Syrians would tell the story across the stars, not as a report of coordinates and signals, but as a lesson in patience, devotion, and the strange, incomprehensible measure of human time. As the ship descended toward Earth, Elias held Amelia close. The deserts of Nevada stretched beneath them, familiar and welcoming. For 60 years he had waited. Now, finally, he had returned not just to his planet, but to the heartbeat of life itself. Kellanori observed one last time before the Ireland departed again into the void. Time, we see now, he murmured to his companions, is not the span between events, but the measure of love that endures them. And so, across the cosmos, the legacy of one Father S. Waitin became a story whispered among stars, an eternal testament that even the briefest lives can leave echoes lasting far beyond light.